Hi, it's Rob from the Brush and Bulkum. Today we're going to be doing a quick tutorial on how to paint brown fur. So the first colour that we're going to use is Citadel Mournfang Brown. I'm going to be using this just to put the base layer of colour onto the fur. Now I'm using quite an old brush to do this. It's actually a very old Citadel Small layer brush. It's got no point on it anymore, but it's ideal for doing base colours on fur because there's lots of texture on there. It can damage the bristles on your brush when you're putting on your base colours, and you may have to do a little bit of jabbing into some of the corners and the nooks and crannies within that fur. That's not too bad on plastic miniatures, sort of like the Games Workshop type fur or anything like that, where it's sort of like clumps of fur going into like little triangles. It's very easy to paint that. But when you've got a metal miniature like this, the fur is sculpted very different. Now you do want to make sure you give it a good coat. So just take your time to get all of it covered, because as I've sprayed this with Citadel Lead Belcher, so it's silver, if I miss any sections on the fur, it will show up as a little spot of silver. This is also one of the reasons why I always find it better to undercoat in black, because if you miss anything, the black doesn't show up as easily as a little spot of white would do. I'm just going to carry on painting this base colour, and then return when we're moving on to the next layer. Next we're going on to Citadel Agrax Earthshade, and we're going to do the bottom half of the fur with this. This will just sink into all the recesses on the fur. As you can see, it brings out all the details between all the tufts. So you get lots of nice shade in there, and the lighter colours where it's raised. The good thing about using shades as well is that it shows you the exact areas that you're going to be highlighting and putting colour back onto, because they're the lightest parts of the area. I'm just making here that I've got the Agrax Earthshade on each section of it, and on the undersides and the edges of it, so that those areas are shaded too. Like so. Next we're going to use a little bit of Citadel Nuln Oil. We're just going to do the top quarter or third of the fur with this. The reason doing this is just to give it a slightly two-tone look. Because obviously when you look at furs, they tend to be different colours in different areas, even if that's only a couple of shades lighter or darker. So I'm using a different shade here, just to give it a slightly different look at the top as it does at the bottom. Like so. Next up we're going to reapply the Mournfang Brown. Now this time we're just going to apply it on all the raised areas of it. I'm using a slightly old medium layer brush from Citadel here. I'm starting off trying to paint the strands almost individually, but it's a very slow and long drawn out process for this, so you'll notice I start going on to almost like a wet brushing technique of not having much paint on the brush but just dragging it across those ridges just to get them lightened again. Now again, the difference between painting this and say the fur that you'd find on one of the Games Workshop models, which I'll show at the end, is that here it's more long strands, whereas the Games Workshop models tend to have it made up of almost triangles. If you're painting one of the workshop models, you will be doing each triangle individually, so you'd be putting the colour back onto each one of those triangles separately. Here we're just kind of wet brushing across the top of it. The idea here is we're just bringing out the brown again. So you've got the shade in the recesses, and you're going to have the nice Mournfang brown colour on top of all the fur. You can start to see those strands highlighted from the shades now, where the colour's been reapplied to them. Next up, we've added a little bit of Citadel Rakarth flesh to the Mournfang brown. We're going to do a quick highlight over the top of the fur. Now we're not going to do all of the fur. We're just going to be trying to do the raised sections of it, so where there's sort of like lumps and bumps within the fur as though it's ruffled, you want to be doing the raised sections of that. And again, the difference between this and the fur that you'd find on the Citadel miniatures, or the plastics at least, is that you would be able to paint this highlight onto the fur triangles. I'll show what I mean at the end of this, with the fur from Abaddon the Despoiler and Lord Felthius. We've both got two slightly different kinds of fur, but you can see what I mean about the triangles and how I've painted those. I can see I'm just trying to highlight the raised areas of the fur where it's a bit ruffled and creased. You don't want to be applying this highlight to all of the fur, just the raised areas, as always. Now you can see there, we're going to add a little bit more Citadel Rakarth Flex to the previous mix. This time we're just going to be highlighting the top areas of the fur. So we're going to make it so it's slightly lighter across his shoulders than it is down his back. The only bits that we're going to highlight with these now is the shoulder areas and then some of the very raised areas on his back. Now I've got to say, I don't really enjoy painting fur that looks like this as much as I enjoy painting the Citadel kind of fur. Although this is a very quick and easy method, we're just using almost light wet brushes and dry brushes to get this colour on. You can get some nice effects with the Citadel fur, which I don't find as easy to achieve on fur that's like this. A little bit off screen there, sorry. We'll leave that there. Now we're going to add a little bit more Rakarth flesh, and we're just going to do a further highlight on the brown. This one is a very small highlight. As you can see, it is lightening it that little bit more. Now we're just going to do one final highlight with a little bit of Citadel Rakarth flesh. It's just ever so gently, you just want to be adding a really tiny amount of this. Like so. Okay, so here we have the finished quick and easy fur. I've given this a blast with a little bit of varnish, which sort of melds the colours together. You can see the highlights and the shades in that. And using the same colours is how I did the fur on Abaddon. You can see this as the triangular kind of Games Workshop fur. And also, to a lesser extent, I kept the colours more or less the same on this. There wasn't quite as many highlights. This is the cape of Lord Felthius. Thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you have, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any future content. Also, think about subscribing to our other social media linked below. Thanks very much.